All right. So, how many of us have been standing in our kitchen or in our office Monday morning and just for like 1 second, we're attempting to do what we're supposed to be doing, attempting to do the task that we've had shifted around for the last, I don't know, 6 months. And then you realize, well, maybe I'll start next Monday, or maybe I'll start next month, or I'm not ready. Many of us have given ourselves that lie, and we've believed it. And it's not just like a little lie, it is a lie that we have constructed and have built narratives to that become our reality. And today, we're going to break down a lot of these lies. We're going to break down what has impacted me the most. And this is a saying that I've had. And when I've heard it, it's just something that has not just sit in me, but like re-inspired me to have this conversation with you guys, which is stagnation leads to deception. Everything starts in our mind and the way that we view ourselves and the way that we think about ourselves. I want you to know that I'm going to give you some real practical tools that are not just going to be a nod and a yeah, no, okay, no. If you actually apply these tools, things are going to shift. And I'm not just saying today, but I'm saying this week, this month. For you, they will shift. Because it's stuff that I've done in my personal life that I've actually seen real change and real shifts in my life. Welcome back to The Business of Becoming. I'm your host, Stephanie. And if this is your first time, welcome. I'm glad you're here to join us. I help high-achieving people who feel alone at the top find peace, purpose, and the next version of themselves. So, before the age of 30, I purchased and own now, still to this day, one of the largest public adjusting firms in Florida. Thankfully, we've been open for almost 2 decades now, and I've been working in this for over a decade and a half. And honestly, before I purchased it, I had given myself every excuse in the book as to why I shouldn't and why I wasn't ready or why this just wasn't the right time. It wasn't for me. I had, a marriage, I had my kids, and there were so many different things going on in my life. And to be honest with you, this show exists because of the journey that I've had to go through, not just in my professional career, but handling both my professional and my personal life. And that's what this show's about, right? It's about the journey, the messy, the beautiful, the chaotic, the diapers and the deadlines and everything else in between. A lot of people don't share, so much of their struggles and what they have personally had to encounter to be able to get to a place where they feel like I'm somewhat successful or I somewhat tried to make it. And honestly, I don't really think that we talk enough about our journey as we're building it. If you take a moment, you realize that the life we have, we're building in between all of what I just said, all of the mess, all of our personal stuff. Like, we need to take a step back and realize and self-audit, what it is that we're trying to build and what are we trying to get to. And a lot of the challenges that I faced were mainly mental. Yes, there was a lot of natural and tangible things that were difficult and hardships, but so much of it was the way I saw myself. So much of it was the way that I was already counting myself out on several things, even though I was already successful enough to be able to, purchase the company, and I was already successful enough in the company. But I still, when I faced things that were a stepping stone for me to get to a higher place, all of these like crazy insecurities and all of these crazy self-doubts just started coming and rushing back to me. And I feel like so many of us are trying to do something else, right? Or we're trying to take a next step, or we're trying to build around our kids and our families, or starting relationships and just trying to do so much at a time that we forget to talk to ourselves and see internally, how are we doing and how do we see ourselves? Because that is the most important thing you can do, because you will lose yourself, whether it's in a relationship, in a business, in leadership. You will lose yourself if you don't hold on to how you even see yourself. Because then the only way you're going to see yourself is how others, talk about you, whether that's praising you or just bringing you down. And nobody in this world will be influential if what they hold their value to or who they are is based on what others think of them. So before we get into the lies themselves, I actually read this research that I want to share with you guys. There's a group of researchers that they grabbed a group of people and they drew scars on their face and they sent them out to have conversations with others. But the tricky part is before they actually sent them to go have these conversations with people, they took off the scars without obviously the subjects knowing. But when they came back and got the feedback of how the conversations went with their subjects and the people who they were talking to, each one of them said that they felt judged, that they felt like they were, just not looked at the same way, that they weren't appreciated, that they were just automatically icked, if that's a better word. And funny enough, the researchers, they call this expectation bias. And what does that mean? That just means that we create the narratives for ourselves. And we create what we think is our reality and how we already expect people to see us because of a scar or because something that they're carrying that is now visible and it's not, hidden behind one of their dark closets. Why am I saying this story? First, I think it was super cool and super genius because it tells us so much about the world that we create for ourselves, not the world that we genuinely see. Because these people were having full-blown conversations with, others, and they had no scars. They could have been completely natural, completely themselves. But they already carried such an insecurity because of this thing that was on their face. That in reality wasn't there, but they thought was. So my question here is, what scars are you carrying into your workplace, into your relationships, into your friendships, into your parenting? Like, all of us have parent guilt. If you are a parent, and if you are a decent parent, you carry some of these scars of our traumas, of our past, of how we were raised, how we were parented. And if you have kids, you can, get mad at them for 1 second and then, 2 minutes later, they just want to go back out and play. Okay, they were in timeout. All right, bye. They're ready. And I think this is such a great way to start this conversation before we break down into the nitty-gritty, because I want you to understand I've lived through so many seasons of my life where I was wearing or feeling like people were judging me for something that honestly they really weren't. The big one was my divorce. Like, how can I go back into the dating world being a single mom? How can I go back to face my team that knew me as this married, person that had like her life in order, and now it's not. I struggled with those scars that were not visible and were not the way that people saw me, but was the way that I was seeing myself, hence made me react different as an individual, made me react differently in my workplace, made me react differently in my friendships, and honestly made me struggle in trying to think that the possibility of a relationship was even possible for me. And that's where this whole stagnation leads to deception comes back into place, because you think you have these scars. You think you have these things that people are going to judge you for. And they're going to knock you down because you're going to have this idea, and they're going to say, you can't do it because you're this or because you're that or because you don't have the time or whatever the case may be. And you stop moving and you create these calcifying stories that build this reality for you, that tear down any kind of motivation, any confidence that you even had in yourself in that moment. And again, you're letting everything around you, including your environment, your friends, your group, your circle, your situation, dictate your future. And I'm going to tell you the truth. Don't. I know this sounds so simple, like, oh, I'm going to tell you the truth. No, like, don't. Don't. Because no one will stand up for you but you. You can go to a Tony Robbins conference, or you can listen to this podcast and feel great for 2 seconds. But the reality is, if you can't find out who you are inside, and you can't battle these questions and actually start creating a different narrative for yourself in your mind, it's going to be a vicious cycle where you find yourself being at an emotional high of, I can do everything, I got this, to going right back down when you hear you really can't, or, you've got kids, they're too little, or you've, got too much going on your plate right now. And it's going to knock you on your ass. And I will be the first to tell you, rock bottom is a good place to start. Rock bottom is a great place to start a foundation. It's a great place to look and say, let me look back and really build my identity off of the good that I've done and the good that I want to do. My failures just taught me. My stresses, my day-to-day, they're going to teach me how to muster through all of this. But they're not going to stop me from getting to where I want to get to. So I want you to try something with me right now. I want you to look in the mirror. If you are an audio listener, look in the mirror, unless you're driving or anything crazy, but take a look in the mirror, right? Because when I did this many times in my life, the first questions that would usually come to my mind was, crap, I should have been further in my life right now. What's wrong with me? Why can't someone love me enough, right? Why can't I have the life that I thought that I was supposed to have by now, right? I was supposed to have another kid by now. I was supposed to, live in this other state, whatever the case. But those were things that were for me, right? Those were the questions that I didn't even want to look in the mirror to ask, because there were doubts of myself. And they were the way that I saw myself. Stay with me, okay? I want you to picture a golf ball and a cup of water. And when doubts come to your mind, okay, there's some doubts that float, meaning you acknowledge it and you say, okay, life's a little messy right now. Life's a little not my favorite, right? Not my favorite season of my life, or my favorite episode of my life. But then there's some that sink. There's some doubts that don't just float, there's some doubts that sink. And those doubts are the golf ball. Because you throw a golf ball in water, it sinks. What am I trying to tell you? Why the hell am I talking about golf? I don't even play it. But those doubts that you tell yourself, or that come out of you, or that they go into your brain, that really start changing the way you move and that you operate, those are the golf ball doubts. And those are the ones that I really want you today to identify. Because you can't let those doubts change how you move. You can't let those doubts maneuver you, really, and completely alter the way that you handle your life, your business, your parenting skills. You can't let that. Doubts will happen, just like fear. Doubts will happen, but they need to be able to float. Because at that point, they're not messing with your internal system. They're there, you acknowledge, all right, goodbye. They're not sinking down deep to the core of who you are. And they're not rewriting your identity. And our work today here is to rewire your brain to understand. And that's why I'm giving you guys these stories and these analogies, so that you can actually physically, tangibly, like in your mental picture, see, oh, that's a golf ball doubt, or that's a floating doubt, right? Because it's going to happen, bro. Like, we're going to have doubts. If you're a parent, like I said earlier, you're going to doubt that you're a good parent. But let me tell you something that somebody told me that honestly can make me cry right now, because it changed my parenting style. And I was in therapy, that's the truth. And I was going in and I was saying, I feel like I'm a bad mom. I want to be there so much more. And I just started going down this spiral of like, why I feel like this and that. And she stopped me and she told me, she goes, can I just tell you something? She goes, the fact that you're even acknowledging that you want to do more and be more present is a sign that you're a great mom. Because, actually, she said, you want to know who doesn't think about wanting to be there more for their children and provide a better life for their kids, a bad mom. And that changed so much for me, because now this obsession of I need to do everything and then I also have to make time for everything for them changed, because I was like, oh, I am a good mom. I am a good parent. Everything I am doing is for them and to think of them. So did I want to be better? Of course. There's always room for growth. But that I am already good enough for them, that golf ball doubt went from being a part of what I was carrying as an identity to now going all the way and not being who I was to my core. Now I was able to remove that and say, I am a good mom. And when sometimes I feel like I'm not, those are just doubts that are floating that I can take away and say, okay, how can I be better now? How can I show up better for these kids that absolutely adore me and are obsessed with me, and that I'm absolutely obsessed with them? Now we're going to get into it. So here are the 5 lies that every working parent tells themselves. And the first one, first of all, I want to tell you, I have told myself all of these. And I have drafted these notes from the things that I have had to really do the work to overcome. Okay? So the first one is the lie that I'll start when things calm down. If you have children, you know that things never get calm. That on the week of one of your most important meetings or biggest client or whatever, something happens, bro. Something happens. Like your kids get sick, or they have a recital, or they need to do this, or they have a dentist appointment, they have that. Like, things just don't calm down as a parent. They can sometimes find a groove and find some steadiness, but they never calm down. Because especially if you have younger kids, they need a lot of attention. And then when they're older, they just need you there. They don't need you to talk as much or be the, wise point of counsel every 5 seconds, but they just need you there. And they don't, my sister, she has, a almost 17-year-old, almost 15-year-old, almost 13-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And she's in the thick of it. And I've asked her 1,000 times, because my kids are only, 3 and 5. I've asked her, what's the difference between that little toddler stage and the stage that the girls are now, that they're, teenagers? And she's like, no, it is so damn demanding. She's like, it is the most demanding part right now. Even before, it was a little easier when they were younger. Now it's just like, I have to just be there. So can we acknowledge that things never calm down? The people who are growing, and this is something I really want you to understand, the people who are growing, they grow in the midst of chaos. They grow in the midst of things not calm, because there's no other option. It's either you grow or you stand still and you stay in stagnation and you just keep the rhythm that you have with no future to change, with no possibility to become anything greater. Here's the reframe from all of that. I want you to understand that life is never going to get calm. And the people who wait for the perfect moment never become the best version of themselves, because that version needs to take risks. That version needs to stand up for themselves and be courageous. That imperfect person in the imperfect time, those are the people who get there, wherever there looks like for you. Deserves that imperfect person of who you are right now to stand up, take courage, take a risk, and start fighting to get there. And I want to ask you, I'm just checking in, how many of you have been waiting for a calmer time to do something? Drop it in the comments. I'm being serious. I want to know. I want to invest myself more with you guys. How many of you have been waiting for a perfect moment for something? And what is that perfect moment supposed to look like for you? And if that perfect moment does come, what are you going to do with that? What are you, in your perfect world, going to do to get there? Because I guarantee you, if you tell me what that perfect moment looks like and what you're trying to do when that happens, we can find out how you can fit that into your life. I promise. It's just, you know what it's going to take? It's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of long nights. It's going to take a lot of work. But that it can happen, I don't doubt you. So why are you doubting you? Lie number 2. I can't take the risk. I'm doing this for my kids. And this one, I want to be very gentle and very cautious with you, because I know that this is a emotional, loaded doubt and lie that we tell ourselves. And I can only speak for myself here, right? But in my personal story, I never wanted to uproot my kids from the life that they had. I never wanted them to deal with what they're dealing with now, right? Shuffling back and forth, and, having 2 homes now, having to celebrate, 2 birthdays and all this other stuff. Like, that is the hardest thing I'm dealing with as a parent, if I'm real with you. But how many of us have used our kids as a shield because we weren't brave enough to take a stand for ourselves? And your kids, no matter what age they are, especially if they're younger, right? But they are looking at you on how you pursue your dreams. How do you pursue what relationship standards look like? They are downloading all of this information by what they're seeing through you. They are downloading what they want from what they see you do, and what they see you passionate for, and what you stand up for, and the way you treat yourself. They're looking at that. Every time you shrink a dream, even if it's quietly, your kids are looking at that. They're looking at what an ambitious adult is and what to do when they get to that point. I'm telling you, my daughter's going to turn 5, and I ask her, what does she want to be and whatever, and she says me. My daughter walks around this office and she's like, I want to be like you. I love you. And then the other day she told me she wanted to be a baker, which I was like, wait, hold up. Like, what are we selling, baby? Like, what are we selling? How are we going to make money off that? But anyways, it's a passion. I'm not going to kill it. But, she's looking at me. Every time we are scared to take a step, they see that. But you want to know what else they see? They see courage and the steps you take that are courageous. And they see, at least in my life, that we do hard things. Because if they're in the best interest of our safety and our life and how we believe our life should look like, we do hard things, courageous things. Courage is making a hard choice. And my daughter says this all the time, and even my son is starting to say it now too. We do hard things. We are courageous. Because being strong and being courageous means a lot of times, in my case, was saying goodbye to a life that I wanted so badly, and saying that's not going to fit us anymore. That's not the way that mommy wants to be treated. That's not the way that, again, very emotional, loaded question, so I get it. But I really want you to understand, especially if you are a single parent and you're listening to me right now, you are so strong for leaving a life that you thought, because no one gets married with the intention of getting divorced. No one has kids with the thought that they're going to have to live 2 separate lives. They're going to have to live over here one time and over here one time. Like, no one wants that, right? And I just want to give you a round of applause for being courageous and stepping up for yourself when the easy thing would have been to stay. And the easy thing would have been to, live a life that wasn't for you and wasn't fulfilling you and was belittling you and just quieting you down, right? And again, I'm not putting blame on anybody or whatnot, because sometimes things just happen, right? But you need to stand up for yourself, and your kids will see that. You need to believe that you deserve better and the best. because that's what you want for your kids, right? You want them to have the best. You want them to believe for the best in themselves. You want to mirror a relationship where they can see that for themselves. Self-love means betting on yourself and showing yourself and your kids that you are worth that risk. And they are worth that. They are worth you making a decision to better their lives. So don't count yourself out. I know it gets dark. I know there's days you are just in the trenches, but you're betting on yourself. And what you're doing is courageous. And I really want you to ask yourself, in any situation that you're in, if you're maybe just too scared to do something and you're just using your kids as a shield, like, is this really for my kids, or is this the most loving piece of excuse that I've ever had? Lie number 3, I'm not ready yet. Told myself that 1,000 times. When I took over this company, the whole 9, I was not ready. Before I even pressed record on this podcast, I was not ready. And we're at like episode 43 right now, Frankie? Yeah. So I was never ready. Rarely are you are ready. And there's a study, well, I'm giving you facts today, right? There's a study that shows when you try to over-prepare for something, because preparation is a key, right? But when you try to over-prepare for something, you realize how much you don't know. And then you psych yourself out heavily. Readiness is not a feeling that shows up before the action. Oh, I like that. I'm going to say that again. Readiness is not a feeling that shows up before the action. Readiness is the feeling that you get when you are in action. Because every day you're getting up and you're saying, I'm going to do this. I'm ready to try. I'm ready to make something out of what's right in front of me. And you're ready to take a chance on yourself. So readiness doesn't come to you before you actually make a move. A lot of times you're freaking scared. You're freaking out before you feel like you're ready to do something. I did a whole episode on confidence. And to bottle it down is every time you take a chance and you do something before you're ready, with, proper steps, right? But you're depositing into your confidence bank account. And every time you stall and you stop to do something because you don't feel ready and you're scared, you're withdrawing from your confidence account. Think about it. Every time you start to try and do something, you're depositing into your confidence. When I press record on this podcast for the first time, I was freaking out. Low-key, I kind of almost like cringed looking at the first episode, but I was like, okay, it went out, it's great, it's fine. But in reality, like, I deposited into my confidence account. I said, I'm going to do it. I don't know how. I'm going to try it. We'll see what happens. And now I have people from all over the world, subscribing and connecting and sharing, what has these episodes meant to them. And it's deposited into my confidence account every time. And it's made me accountable to you guys. To know, hey, every Tuesday, your girl got to drop an episode. She's got to take time to tell you how I've gotten to this point and how it has saved me from the worst moments of my life and has made me somebody through them, made me somebody to leave a legacy and to influence and to build and to learn to be successful all through my chaos, because life happens. And I will remind you that because life happens and it gets hard, it doesn't mean it's over. And it doesn't mean that chapter's dead and ended for you. It means you got to write another part to it now. You've got to see what is next for you. Line number 4. This one is funny. This one is, I tried, it didn't work, it's not for me. I'm going to move on. Hi, that lie. I'll give you the simple answer to that. All teenagers or all young entrepreneurs, you go and you apply for a job and they don't call you back. You tried, it's not for you, let's move on. Okay. I own the company. I hire tons of people. I have hired tons of people. And I have done interview processes for years. Do you want to know who actually gets the job? Those that keep trying. Those that come back and tell me, hey, I know I couldn't get that job. What could I have done better? What can I learn? What skill set do you need me to know so I can get this job? That is music to my ears. Why? Because it's not about the first failure or the first setback. It's what are you doing with that data to say, oh, let me try this again in a different manner, or let me get a skill, or let me learn something so that I can be fruitful in this, or so that this can actually take off and work. That is the simplest way for me to tell you, because so many of us are like, oh, well, I tried it, I don't know, it's not really for me. Okay, did you try again? Did you change something up? Did you try to see if there was a better way for you to market yourself? Or did you just give up at the first sign of a stop sign? At the first fear? At the first rejection? You know how many doors I've had slammed on my face? Guys, I was a door knocker for a long time. Do you know how many doors I had slammed in my face? You know how many times I was telling, hey, get out of here. It just taught me to refine my skill. It taught me to, okay, how can I get their attention quicker? I had to teach myself. I had to learn. I had to be studious. And I'll be very honest with you guys, because that's what we do here, right? Countless of times in my faith, I've felt that I can't do this anymore. This isn't for me. It didn't work. Maybe it's just not going to work again. And what a lie. Because nobody in this world, and this I'm talking for myself, nobody in this world wants to succeed more than God. And I have failed countless of times. And countless of times I have come back and I've realized I need more help. I need more prayer. And I've humbled myself to not think that I know it all and say, what areas do I need to be better in? Just like if it's an interview. Like, what areas can I be better in? What areas do I need to be a better human being in? Where can I be centered to make sure that my life is on a trajectory going up and not on a trajectory going down? Do not let the fear of failure rob you from the courage that you have to try. Because so many of us, before we even try to do something, we automatically start panicking and start creating this narrative that, oh, I'm going to fail. And if I fail, this is what's going to happen. And if this is going to happen, and I've wasted all this time, I've wasted all this money in this investment. And you create this narrative of like, why do I, by the time you finish telling yourself this story, you're like, why am I even going to try? You convinced yourself that you're not good enough, and you've robbed your courage. You've robbed yourself from the courage that you initially had to try and step out of your comfort to do something courageous, to do something that is even fulfilling. Forget about it just making money, but that is going to be something to fulfill you. Like, I traveled most of my youth through mission trips. And let me tell you, I freaked out because I was like, oh my God, I'm traveling. I'm also going to school full time. I'm also working full time. Like, how is this really a reality for me? But I knew I wanted to do something that wasn't for myself. I wanted to give back. And I made it happen. For 2 years, I traveled so much every month or every other month. And I did something for somebody else. I still worked. I worked harder. And I was fulfilled. Like, it was such a fulfilling thing in my life for me to do. So yes, okay, I agree. You do things that are going to make us money, but also, what if you're psyching yourself out from things that are just fulfilling you as a human being right now? Are you letting fear rob your courage from even trying to attempt to do something that is not just going to change your life, but maybe somebody else? Lie number 5 is one I've told myself time and time again, is now it's not the right season of my life to grow. I have told myself that lie so many times. And one thing I have learned, which I am going to share these golden nuggets with you, is we are supposed to grow in every chapter of our life. Every single one of them creates an opportunity for us to really grow and grow wiser in what's going on. There are chapters that you need to grieve. There are chapters that you need to rest. There are chapters that you need, a lot of different things. But if you're in a chapter or a season or whatever, I don't know how else to put it, in your life that's taking longer than a year or two, that is not a season. That is a pattern. That is a pattern in your life that you need to acknowledge, and you need to go to your root and find out what is causing you to be in this cycle. And guys, I promise you, I have had to do lots of inner work to realize that I was stuck in this cycle for 2 years. And I thought it was just me. I thought it was, well, maybe I'm just not, this is not my time to grow and to learn. Maybe it's just my time to just go through it and suffer. And it's not. It's realizing that there's so much inner work that needs to be done because there's so many fears that I couldn't even name them. I had to go deep. I had to go real deep and realize that I was in a pattern. And there were things in my life that I was stopping and not doing and limiting myself from growth because I wasn't acknowledging the things that the hard questions I needed to ask myself. And the hard, decisions I had to do, I was being avoidant. And I was just going through my day and going through work and going through everything else that was distracting me. So, yeah, ask yourself, have I been in this for way too long? And if I have, what is this pattern that I need to break? Because it's not just a season anymore. Because we're not meant to be stagnant. We're not meant to just exist. We're meant to grow and help others around us grow. So what pattern do you need to break in your life? So now I've told you the lies, and now I'm going to give you the tools. Because even though I've told you some of the tools in those lies, I'm actually going to give you some practical tools, okay? The first tool is the lie audit. So what are you going to do? You're going to audit your lies. I want you to sit with yourself, grab a piece of paper, write down the lie that you've been telling yourself. I can't do this because of this, or I am not good enough because of this, or I can't hold a relationship because of this. Okay, name it. Say it out loud, as crappy as it sounds. Name it. Because after you do that, now you're going to tame it. And you are going to write down, is this a logical thing or is this just an emotional thing? I promise you, a lot of you guys you're going to know the answer even before you finish the sentence. But sometimes you need to say it out loud and be real with yourself. Tool number 2, replace that toxic positivity language and replace it with real growth self-talk. That's the second thing. So instead of just I'm bold, I'm confident, I'm strong, those are great and they work. And, I think the way you speak to yourself is super important. But for those of us who have been on the struggle bus for a long time, sometimes even just saying it just feels like you're singing and it's like you're redundant. Okay, I've heard the song before, I get it. Try changing that a little bit. It's helped me so much. Instead of saying, I am successful and I'm going to do this, you can easily tell yourself and anchor yourself in, I am doing everything I can to be successful in this. I can do hard things. That is my go-to line with my kids. I've tried it. No, I can do hard things. I'm going to try again. I'll make this work. That's real growth anchor. That's not just, you're shouting from the rooftop or you're in that the roof of Wall Street moment where you're ugh. those are great, awesome. But sometimes we need a little bit more of a realistic, like, okay, today was really good. I did enough. And tomorrow, I'm going to do more. Growth anchor talk. The next tool is the 24-hour move. This one, this one I really had to do because there are, I mean, I do hard things, right? So there are a lot of conversations that I just didn't want to have. And I didn't want to make that phone call, or I didn't want to make, that email. And I would make an executive decision and say, I give myself 24 hours to make it. You figure it out. And it put this pressure on myself in a good way to say, okay, I'm going to knock down that thing from my list that I haven't wanted to touch in ages. It works. It works for me. And honestly, I think if you put a deadline on yourself, it's going to work for you too. Again, these are practical tools, guys. And if you don't use them, then yeah, they're just going to be great words. But if you do, you're going to see your life change. And you want your life to change. You're not here because you want it to be the same. Tool number 4, I've said this a few times. Change your environment. Change your circle. We're talking about these lies that we tell ourselves. And some of the times the people that are in our circle and are in our environment, they don't let us forget these lies. Or they're part of the reasons why those lies even exist. Sometimes you do need a change of space. Sometimes you do just need a different person to talk to, or a different person to look up to guide you, to advise you in the level up seasons of your life. You got to find people who are going to challenge you. You got to find people who are going to pull you from where you're at and test you, give you the kick in the ass that you need to say, I can do this. I've been telling myself that I can, but I actually can. I could walk, away from this toxicity relationship that I have, or I could, stand up for myself at my workplace, or I could start this business, or I could lead this team, and I could be successful in what I'm doing. You need that. Do you want to see breakthrough? Do you want to see success? Do you want to live a life that you've hoped and wanted to, like your whole life? Like, do you want that? To get up and do it. Get up and do it because you can. Thank you guys for listening to my TED Talk. I'm going to leave you with one last thing. Okay. Elizabeth Gilbert, she famous wrote Eat, Pray, Love. If you haven't read it, do so. If you haven't watched the movie, do it. Julia Roberts, love her. But anyways, she wrote this book, and she was saying that she had such a hard time to try and write this book, that she would write, delete. And one day she had this like coming to Jesus moment, and she said, I didn't promise the world that I would write brilliantly. I just promised that I would write. And when she did that, she unlocked this whole version of herself that was just free to be her. And what came out of it was incredible. I mean, one of the best selling books of all time. So I want to leave you with that. This week, find something that you've been trying so hard to be perfect at, and give yourself the grace to say, I'm not going to do this perfectly, but I'm going to try. Write down the goal, write down the dream, write down the business plan, and don't aim to be perfect. Don't aim to be the best even. Just aim to move. Move in that direction. Put one foot in front of the other. All right? So thank you for listening to The Business of Becoming. I am so happy that you found your place here and that this feels like home. So many of the people that are on this channel, I see you guys. I see the views. I see you guys write. All I'm asking is share this with somebody that you believe really can make a difference in their life. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because I want to keep doing this. And I think it's really been helpful, not just for you guys, but for myself, because I say things out loud and I realize how much of a difference it's made in my life and how much I want to do that for you. Again, it's not about being super rich and amazing and crazy. It's about being influential. and with the resources that we got. So help me do that. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys on the chair next week.